Okay, this is a very impromptu video, but it's something that we just went through, and I wanted to share just personal experience on sickness. So last Sunday, first child came down with a fever. Tuesday, the next child came down, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we were all clear by Friday. But I want to talk about sickness and the way we approach it. So I've done videos like this in the past, actually, where I talk about sickness and all of my old ways of homeopathy and tinctures and teas, and there's nothing wrong with that. But today I want to bring a different approach to this because as I have grown in motherhood, my approach for sickness has also changed and grown. And I just want to share with y'all what we do and just encourage you if you kind of get stressed out when your kids get sick, or you kind of get nervous about sickness, or especially when you're going into a sick season. I don't really consider this a sick season because we're like at the end of spring, but our kids still get sick. Kind of just other ways to approach it and think about it. So I honestly think the sickness we just got is because we are about to go on a little vacation. And usually the week before vacation, I am like prepping food, packing bags, getting things ready for our animals. It's kind of, I would consider it a busier week, but my kids got a little sick and I had to spend more time cuddling them, spend more time holding them, spend more time just laying with them in the sun, resting our entire bodies. And it was almost like they were just calling for that. So honestly, number one, I want to just ask you to consider when your children get sick next time, think about, is there something that just went on that was really busy or really stressful, or something that you as a family are anticipating, and that your child might have just been calling for some extra rest? Because if I look back to a lot of sicknesses, I can almost pinpoint it down to we were go, go, go. It was a holiday season and we were going to this family and this family and this family. And it wasn't so much about being in contact with lots of different people, but more so rushing my children around to all these places, to people they might not know very well. And they just were calling for rest. So that's my number one thing I want you to consider is when your children get sick, is there some way that your family needs to slow down? Because sickness slows you down. Even if you're not the one that's sick. I didn't get sick through this last week, but I was slowing down with my children to help them heal their bodies. So I'll talk about what we actually do, like tangible things we actually do for sickness now, instead of like all the homeopathy and the tinctures and the teas that I used to do. And I still have all those things on hand, but I can't tell you the last time I've really touched any of those things. It's been at least a year or so, but I still have them for cases that I might need them, but I don't run to them anymore because my whole perspective around sickness has just changed a lot. So I think a common misconception is that if you are a healthier family, that your kids shouldn't get sick. And I used to think that. I would think, wow, I'm doing all of these things. I'm trying to be so aware of our food. I'm trying to be so aware of our outdoor time, which I wasn't really aware of it until this last year. I thought we were getting outside a lot, but we really weren't. And then my kids would get sick and I'd be like, what did I do wrong? What did I do? What did I need to do differently to keep them from getting sick? But no, children, anybody, everybody needs to get sick. It's the way our body practices fighting off an illness. And that's why I believe it is so important with all my being not to intervene in sickness, especially babies and children, because their bodies need the opportunities to practice fighting off sicknesses. And that is what fevers are for. This last week when my children were sick, it was just fever sickness. I have no idea what they had. Absolutely no idea. It wasn't like a stomach issue. It wasn't like a cough or a runny nose. It was just fevers with each child. So there was something their body was either fighting off or either just calling for rest. Fevers are so good. I used to be afraid of them and think that we had to fight them off. We never really did the Tylenol and the Motrin and all of that because I'd learned pretty quickly that I didn't want to use that in our family. But I use like teas. I would try to use teas to lower their fever. We have a supplement we got from our naturopathic practitioner a while back. It's called calcium lactate, and I do keep that on hand because if the fever gets really high for really long and the child is just really worn out from fighting that with that fever, I'll give them a little bit of that to lower the fever. But it's not like it's a very natural way of lowering fever. It's more so offering the body calcium to support fighting the fever and like helping remineralize their body instead of just dropping the fever as Tylenol, Motrin, Advil would do. So I do keep that on hand, but I only had to use that with one of the children this week because his fever was going on like 23 hours, 20 something hours, pretty much nonstop. And he was just really worn out. And then his fever was gone within like 28, 29 hours. It was really quick going through each child. This one only had a fever for like 5 hours, and I'll talk to you what I did about him, but he's also still breastfeeding and nursing. So nonetheless, fevers are great. They're our body's way of either calling for rest and slow down, just asking us to slow down, or fighting something off, getting really hot, fighting off the illness, the sickness, and moving on. And that's why I believe it's so important not to intervene and letting our children's bodies practice fighting off these things. And the more that they do that, the quicker they heal. I remember when I was a child, and my husband, we had talked about this too, we were treated the typical way, and that's just what our moms knew. There wasn't all this research out there. Now for our moms to try, they were literally just listening to their pediatricians. I think a lot of times our generation can kind of like look down upon the generations before us and be like, well, you didn't do this, or you didn't know this, but they didn't have the resources that we have. We are blessed to be able to have the internet and to be able to learn these things and learn these things from other moms through things like YouTube and social media, when our moms and grandmothers didn't have that. Yes, several generations before them, they had this passed along in their family and they knew this, but then a lot of modern ways came in and pediatricians came in and gave their opinions on everything and their advice, and that's just what several generations listened to. They didn't have other options. So nonetheless, my husband and I were we can remember being sick a lot more, and just prolonged sicknesses, because our sicknesses were intervened a lot more and were given a lot more antibiotics and fever reducers and things like that. We had stocked, both of our families had well stocked medicine cabinets with just traditional Western medicine, and we just were like comparing a while back how much sicker we felt like we were as kids than thankfully our kids have not been, but just comparing and contrasting the way we approach sickness than a lot of was done in the past. So talking now about some things that we actually practically do when we are sick. First and foremost, if it is a young child, I think I even did this with my 3-year-old last time she was sick, not this time. She only had her fever for like 4 hours, and she just took a nap in the sun and then on the couch that evening, and it was gone by the night. But like with this one, he got the fever, that's what I'm calling it, because that's all that we really know that we had. We have no idea what they had or what they were going through, but it was just a fever. When he got the fever, it was about 11 o'clock at night. It was super, super hot. And I was like, oh, you're hot. And when babies get fevers, I will not lie, I get a little nervous. He's over 3 months, so that's fine. I know it's recommended, like it's always said, if your baby has a fever before 3 months, that there's a problem, but we never had to deal with that. But I have no families that have, and they just take it as is and they don't fret over it. But anyways, he got a fever about 11 o'clock at night, and he was really hot. Like, I don't check temperatures either, because I don't want to know a number in my head of what the fever is, because I know that the fever is good, and I've just learned to feel their heat and know that it's an okay amount. But if I had to guess, it was well over 100. He was very hot to the touch, his entire body. So I literally just stripped him down, diaper and all, stripped down off my pajamas and laid him on my chest for a little bit. And then when he was ready to nurse, nursed him as much as he would drink, and he nursed fine. So I knew he wasn't going to get dehydrated or anything. It was at 11 o'clock one night. By like 4 or 5 in the morning, he was perfectly fine. I kind of expected his fever to come back a little bit, but it didn't. But that whole next day, we laid outside in the sun. I nursed him in the sun. He laid naked in the sun. And that's it. I rested with him and he was fine. The child that had the little bit of a longer fever was my toddler. He is nursing a little bit still at night, right before bed, but not as much as this one. So he didn't get as many of the antibodies that breastfeeding offers to help with sickness and help with that comfort and help with that closeness that comes when children are sick. They're calling to be close to their parents. Their bodies are longing to be close and connected. And his lasted, like I said, about 30 hours. But the day he was sick, he was outside in the sun all day. I kept his face shaded so he wasn't like burning hot, because it was a little warm that day. But his body, he was naked in the sun all day. I gave him honey. We had, I would have done a hot shower had he wanted it, but I didn't really want to fight him to get in the shower. Things like that. Just natural ways that we would have done years ago. Just our main go-tos are sunshine, skin to skin, hot showers to break if we have like mucusy, like breathing stuff, which we didn't have that this time, and honey. I'll do honey a lot because I just know there's so much benefits to honey. And we also have fermented garlic that I've talked about before, and I do still have it if my child asks. Sometimes my children will ask for fermented garlic and I'm like, sure, go ahead. But if they don't ask for it anymore, I don't try to force it because their bodies know. And also fasting. I used to be one to think, oh, you've got to eat, you're sick, you need to get your energy back. No, when you are sick, your body is asking for a break from digesting food, and it is okay not to force your child to eat, which many of y'all probably know that. I do make sure they're hydrated, so we drink lots of, I did give them honey. I was actually making bone broth that day, so one of my children wanted bone broth. The day he was sick, I gave baby bone broth and a little bit off of a spoon, which he's already eating that anyway when he's starting some foods. One of the children just drank kombucha all day, sometimes just water, just things to keep them very hydrated is all I focus on. I do not force food, and they never really want food when they're sick, and they heal so much faster when I'm not forcing food down them. I remember when my first son was first getting his little sicknesses, I was still trying to feed him. And I was thinking, you've got to eat, you've got to get well, you've got to keep your energy up to get well. No, that's a misconception. Your child does not have to eat when they're sick. Their body is asking for a fast. They're asking for rest from digesting and processing the food, and that's what they need during the sickness. Okay, let's talk about winter sicknesses because it's not winter right now. I might do another video like this closer to winter, but this was fresh on my mind, so that's why I'm going to talk about it. Winter time, we always consider and think, oh, my child's going to get sick. And if you're thinking that, your child's probably going to get sick, because I've talked a lot about the energy of the mom is the energy of the home. And if you're thinking it, it's probably going to happen. So don't go into winter thinking that you're going to have a sick season. Go into winter with positivity and the tools that you have, that you have acquired, that our mothers and grandmothers may not have had the options to acquire because they didn't have social media and the internet and ways to research stuff. All they had is like a pediatrician, but I won't go into that in this video. Going into the winter, think about it. Winter is a time of rest. The nature rests in the winter. Do we rest in the winter? We try. Yes, we really do try. We're not perfect at that. Especially around the holidays, we travel a lot. None of our family is really close to us, so we are traveling go, go, go. We try to space it out, but sometimes it all falls within like the same few days, and it's pretty stressful on our family, and especially our children, because they're used to a calm, slow day at home, on the farm, in the grass, with animals, and then we rush them around from house to house to house. There's lots of sugary cookies and foods that we're not usually used to. I do like pick and choose what they eat a lot of times, and they're learning to make good decisions themselves, my older ones. But nonetheless, there's a lot more stress around the holidays, and that's always when people get sick. But I don't think it's so much the germs that you're around more people, but more so the stress that your body is taking on, and then it's asking for a rest. That's my whole thing here, is when you're sick, what is your body actually asking for? It's not necessarily you came in contact with Grandma Jane who had a cough, and you think that you got it from her, and then you want to blame everything to her, because I've done that. I have been the one to be like, oh, they were sick and they didn't tell us, and then we went around them, and then now we're sick. That's probably, yeah, maybe, but that's not what I believe anymore. I believe it's truly a stressful time on our children especially, and that's why a lot of times they get sick. We're indoors a lot more in the winter. We're running heat a lot more in the winter. I have tried to stop running our heat so high. Being such a drastic shift from outdoor temperature of like 30s to an indoor temperature of like 75. We keep our heat really low now, like below 66 usually, unless it's super, super cold. My husband is still not quite on board with being colder in the house, but we're working on it. We got lower than we had this past winter, and he's been okay with it, and he's adjusting well. But running so much heat, it makes the house very stale and dry. And then, like I said, you go outside into the cold air, and it's such a drastic shift, and your body's like, whoa, what's happening? I can't keep up, and then we get sick. So being very aware of the seasons and living seasonally, we would not have had heat in the past. We would have had a fire. So if you can build a fire in your house, go with that. We are working towards that. We don't have that yet. We have some things going with a wood stove to set up, and hopefully that'll be our heat source in the future. But again, I don't want our house to be so toasty and then we just walk outside and just like freeze to death. We worked a lot on that this winter of not running heat and our children getting used to the coldness. And when you don't have your house so cold, your children get used to the cold a lot more. And the cold is actually so healing. It's a misconception too that the cold makes you sick, that the rain makes you sick. No, It's not. It's that we're not getting outside in it, and we're outside less in the cold and the rain, and that's why we're getting sick. And we're not in tune with nature and the seasons as much in the winter, or at least our modern culture. And we really tried to live a lot differently this past winter. Another thing, we're not afraid of germs. I do not overly wash my children's hands. Y'all might think we're gross or weird, but I really don't wash my children's hands that often. If they obviously put their hands in poop in the barn, I wipe it off in the barn, and then I wash their hands in the house, if I remember. And if they've like been playing in the dirt and we're coming in to eat, I'm gonna dust off their hands or rinse off their hands. But I'm not like scrubbing their hands with soap. But like when we are out and about, like at a play place, I'm not like putting hand sanitizer all over them. I know there's germs at those places, but I'm not afraid of those germs. A lot of times my children will get sick when we travel. And I hope we don't next week because we are traveling. But if we do, we'll handle it, and we'll just slow down a little bit and let them rest a little more. He was asleep when I went to film this video, and then I sat down to start filming, and he woke right up because I guess he knew I was gonna try to get a little bit of work done. Nonetheless, last year on the trip, one of our children got sick on the second to last day. She was calling for rest. We let her rest the rest of the trip in the condo. She got better on the way home. The next child got sick the day we got home, and then the next, and then the next. And it was truly just them needing rest and recovery and closeness to us. So that's my view on sicknesses now. I hope that gives you a different perspective on thinking about sickness. The number one thing is to think, what is my child asking for, or what is your body asking for? If you're getting sick, have you been extra stressed lately? Have you been extra go lately? And your body is truly just asking for a slowdown and a rest. Because I think so many times that's all that it is. Yes, there's exceptions, and don't come at me with my child had this and this and they had to get special treatment for this, because I know there are exceptions. But the common cold, cough, sickness, flu, stomach virus typically is just rest. Sun, honey, hot showers if it's like a congestion issue, skin to skin if your child is young enough they want to do that. I mean, I would do skin to skin with my 5 and 6 year old if they wanted to, but they probably aren't going to want to. I hope this gives you an option to reconsider why your child is getting sick. If they're getting constantly sick during a certain season, maybe they are at a daycare, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with daycare, and a lot of times we blame the daycare because there's a lot of kids there and there's a lot of germs there, which might be true. But also, could it be when it is winter and the germs are going through the daycare, the sicknesses are going through the daycare, are those children just asking for rest, and we are not giving them that? We are still rushing to work every day, and I know that's not an option for everybody, and I don't want to upset anyone, but just kind of painting a picture here of what it might be. Are we still rushing them around every morning to eat their breakfast, get in the car, get their shoes on, get out of the vehicle, get into the daycare, and then they're not getting picked up till after dark because the sun's setting earlier, and then they're only probably outside for 30 minutes that day? Is it truly just their body begging for rest and slowing down? And I know if you're at a state where you don't have the option of not being in a daycare, that's hard to hear. But when I worked at a daycare, I did work at a daycare through high school. There was typically a sick season, and kids were still rushed around. These kids were at daycare all hours of the day, picked up very late because mom and dad had to work, and that just wasn't an option in their family. But children were typically out for 3-4 plus days because their sickness their body was just asking for healing. And I don't know for sure, but they were probably being treated with fever reducers, just knowing the kind of children and the environment I worked in. Probably lots of fever reducers, antibiotics, cough suppressants. Their body just wasn't being given the chance to naturally rest and recover and heal itself. And I truly believe that goes so far in just letting the body do what it was designed to do. Let it rest, let it have sunlight, let it have fresh air, let it have good quality like honey, raw honey, skin to skin from mom, breastfeeding if they are a nursing baby still, bone broth if you have that, just not stressing so much over all of the medicines, whether it's Western medicine, homeopathy, tinctures, teas. I used to do that, and I have videos that I still have on this channel, I believe, that are talking about my homeopathy cabinet. But again, I rarely even go to it now. Like I said, this last sickness, I only went and grabbed one little calcium lactate to give that child a little bit of like rest from the fever, just like a couple hours of break from that constant high fever he was having. And it dropped it. Like I could feel he cooled off for a couple hours, and then he heated back up again, and then he went to sleep, and then his fever broke in the middle of the night, and he was perfectly fine the next day. So I just have truly come to truly honor and appreciate how our bodies are designed by our wonderful Lord, and how he designed us to heal and designed us to prosper in the correct environment. Now, I do want to go back and preface that my children have been shifted the environment that we live in a lot in the last year, 2 years, their whole lives, some of them, especially this one. So their bodies are in an environment that is healing, that can heal itself. They're not under fluorescent lights all day. They're not under blue light. They're not watching screens. They're not eating processed foods. They're in nature. They're with me all day. And I think that goes to play a whole lot. And I know that's not an option for everyone. I've talked about it with many mamas on here who are longing to be home and to offer their children a different environment to grow up in, and they're just not there yet. But I always encourage you, think about what steps you can be making today that can bring you there in your future. Whether it might be 5 years away, but at least you're working towards that goal, and you have that in your mindset, and you're shifting your lifestyle now, or you're removing things or thinking about moving things and changing things around so that you can change that lifestyle for the betterment of your children. So that's just our philosophy on sickness. Again, that may not be everybody's, and that's fine. We all have different opinions on things. We all have different ways we approach things, but I just wanted to offer a different perspective on sickness and looking at it differently than trying to fix our children all the time, because we as mothers want to fix things. We want to heal our children. We want to do everything we can to make them well again, but their bodies know what to do. They were perfectly designed by our maker to perfectly heal in the right environment, and they will. That's right. All right, I hope you enjoyed this little video today on sickness. While it was fresh on my mind, I just wanted to talk about it. If you have any personal experience with approaching sickness this way and just letting it be and letting their bodies heal, please share. I know when other mamas can see other examples of their children healing in this way, it gives them encouragement and not like fear. It can be fearful when your child is sick and you just let it be. It can be fearful, especially when you're first shifting from treating it to just letting it be. I remember the first few fevers, I was like, do I need to do this? Do I need to do something? But now, like several years into this, it's just natural, and it's just what we do, and it's just how they heal quickly and naturally and the way their bodies were designed. So this little guy is ready to probably go outside. So thank y'all for spending this video with me, listening to me talk about sickness. I will talk to y'all in my next video.